Hey Fear Minimalist, it's Sophia Lark of thefearminimalist.com, helping women of color break the fear-based emotional cycle that keeps them stuck in mother wound trauma. So what do you do when the work that you're doing to heal trauma isn't working? I'm going to share what may be causing that to happen, so make sure that you keep watching. If you're joining me for the first time today, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking your time to lend eyes to what I'm doing on my channel, and I hope it resonates with you. And if it does, be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell so that you'll get all the latest updates when I upload new content every single week. Why is it during the process of trauma work, the work seems to stagnate or maybe stop working altogether? There could be a few reasons for that. The primary reason that we tend to go to most of the time is that there's a mismatch between the therapist or coach and the client. And that could very well be true. It could be that the person that's assessing you, they have their own agenda, they don't get you, they don't ask about your culture, that kind of thing. Or they're maybe too forceful when you need someone to be a little bit more gentle. It's just not a good match. Also, it could be maybe the therapist or coach client relationship is appropriate. Maybe that's okay. Maybe you really click with this person. But then the intervention or the interventions that they begin to apply are not appropriate. So they're not a good, the intervention client mix is not appropriate. Or it could be that the interventions are appropriate, but the timing for applying the intervention is not. And so I want to focus on the intervention client match as well as the timing for applying the interventions, because specifically the intervention client match, that impacts Black and brown women and people of color in unique ways. And so I really want to get into that. And then the last one is just the timing issue. It may not be time to apply specific interventions. So let's dive in. Often treatments and interventions don't start off asking women of color how their culture has helped them to cope with some of the most difficult experiences in their lives. And, often in therapy, you hear about evidence-based treatments. We apply evidence-based modalities to help people have a sense of certainty that they're going somewhere with the treatment. They're not just here talking about it and nothing's happening. But what often gets left out about evidence-based treatments is that primarily they were created by Caucasian people. And so there is always something lacking in terms of a cultural, racial focus on the issues that impact people who are outside of the dominant culture. And so there's that area where intervention lacks. And also understanding that evidence-based treatments are sort of derived, the results of that are derived from these large studies of people where the averages are taken, like on average, this treatment is effective for this person. But when you're considering the populations that are studied, how are they comprised? Who primarily makes up these participant study groups? And a lot of times you'll see a large number of Caucasian people, because a lot of times these studies are conducted at universities or in laboratories that are funded by very wealthy people who happen to be of the dominant culture. No surprise there. And what you'll see is like 88% Caucasian, 92% Caucasian. You'll see 8%, everybody else. So there might be Black, Latino, Native, Asian who are in that 8%. And it's just not one group that's 8%. It's like the percentages are split within that 8%. So there might be 2% Black people. And when you compare that to 92% of Caucasian, well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, a genius to figure out that's not truly representative of a diverse group. So how can we fairly apply these evidence-based results across the board? So we should always be asking. I like how Dr. Tamar Bryant posed the question in terms of trauma recovery for Black and brown women when she asked, evidence-based for whom? Often we're talking about evidence-based, but we're not asking the questions of how culture is included in these assessments. So that's one way. One of the reasons a black or brown person, a woman in particular, struggles with ongoing trauma symptoms is because they have experienced racial trauma. There has been an attack on their cultural or ethnic identity. And if you are not asking questions that elicit responses about the impact of those types of traumas on their minds and bodies, then there's a sense that you don't get it. There's a sense that you don't know what you're talking about. Even if you are a black and brown therapist or a black and brown coach. Many black and brown therapists and coaches are entrenched in this westernized system of trauma treatment. And they're not even aware a lot of the times of the questions they need to ask about culture and how they help people to cope. They're just busy talking about evidence-based treatments. And like I said, nothing's wrong with that. I'm trained in a lot of those modalities. But when you have been a victim of racism on multiple occasions and discrimination, you start to ask the question, what's missing here from these treatments? I'm going to therapy. These people are not addressing this. Is it a big deal or is it not? It was a big deal to me. So that gives you pause. So when you ask the cultural question, how does culture help you to cope with the various aspects of society that has contributed to your trauma? Whether it's the mother wound, other personal experiences of trauma. And when we ask that question, the responses to that will create this need for cultural modifications to treatment. So it's not just I'm applying EMDR or CPT or a narrative exposure therapy, but I'm applying it with the integration of spirituality, of dance, of music, of art, of poetry, various aspects of culture, natural remedies, herbs, medicines, herbal medicines. How do we integrate that into these evidence-based treatments so that they represent a recognition of culture as an aspect of coping for Black and brown women? This recognition allows women of color to construct narratives that address oppression, marginalization, discrimination, and racism as contributing factors to their pain. And the autonomy that is gained through self-definition, the ability to self-define your experience, to not have somebody else define it for you, allows women to move from the sense of being acted upon to the experience and the feeling of being active creators of their destiny. Another reason trauma work is not working, or it seems to have stagnated, is because the timing is off. The brain and the body are not ready to dive into the more intense aspects of trauma work. The International Society for Traumatic Studies suggested a phase-based approach to treating complex trauma and complex PTSD because the phase-based approach includes a stabilization component. Stabilization allows for the development of mind-body resources that increase what is called interoception. Interoception is the ability to gauge the internal workings of the body. So what is your body doing? Can you feel your muscles tense and tighten up in response to something? Like, are you actually in tune with that? That's what interoception helps you to do. And then when you're able to gauge that, you're able to properly manage the emotional content of that experience. And so without a good ability to engage, get a good sense of what's going on internally, you might not recognize that when you are stressed out or triggered in some kind of way that you default to dissociation, where your brain and your body disconnect from each other and you don't even get around to the point of processing the distressing content of the memory. You can be telling the story and not feeling anything. You can be saying, oh yeah, and this happened, and you know, so and so did this, and blah blah blah, and you're just flat. That's because you've numbed out. Or it could be that on the opposite end, it could be that your nervous system is so highly triggered, so highly keyed up, so overcharged that you're triggered into this feeling of hypervigilance and anxiety to the point where you're perceiving threats and dangers where there are none. And so when your body is in this state, I call it hot seat arousal. You're keyed up. You're looking around. You're assessing for threat. You can't calm the body. This is usually a sign of the hyperactivation of two key brain areas in the limbic system, the insula and the amygdala. And when both of those are heightened, hyperactivated at the same time, your body cannot relax. You are highly anxious. You're hypervigilant. This disrupted balance amongst those systems is what can prevent the trauma work from working. And so the goal is to stabilize these two key brain structures so that your mind and your body can reconnect. You can reconnect back to parasympathetic functioning, so that your brain and body could communicate in a way that makes trauma treatment effective, so that you can benefit from that. Those are two ways, two reasons, I would say, why trauma treatment might not be effective, why you feel like it's not working. It's because the intervention is not properly matched to you, or maybe it is, but there's a component of it missing, which is the cultural part that we talked about. Or it might be that the timing is off. Your body and brain are not ready to access the parts of trauma treatment that are in line next. And so you have to get to a point of making sure that you're stabilized to get ready and prepared to go to that next level. So now you know why trauma work may not work even when you're doing the work. All right, guys, and I'll be releasing a video next week on creating a feeling resource to help you cultivate stabilization in the body. And in the meantime, if you want to continue to practice creating those healing pathways toward your recovery, be sure to get my hindsight narratives worksheet that I linked in the description, and all you have to do is click the link and the worksheet is yours. Also, guys, I want to invite you to connect with me to have a more in-depth conversation on healing the mother wound at Instagram at FEARMINIMALIST. I'm on Twitter at FEARMINIMALIST, and also Facebook at FEARMINIMALIST, where we can expand the dialogue around healing the mother wound and complex trauma. So be sure to connect with me on those social media platforms. That's it. That'll do it for today. If you like this video, hit the like button below, share with your friends, drop a comment to let me know how this video was helpful for you today. And if you took anything away from it that is really going to aid in your recovery journey, I'd like to know your story. So please drop your comments below and be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Click the notification bell so that you'll always be in the know when I upload new content every single week. And remember, the sun is going to rise and shine bright tomorrow. The question is, are you going to rise with it and allow your best self to shine? I hope you do, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.